This is Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Our guests today are here to talk about their work with Latinos with disabilities and some of the challenges these individuals face. But they're also here to offer some words of hope. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Well, let's start off by talking to each of you and learning about what you do and who you work with. Let's start with you, Melanie. Thanks and welcome.
I'm Melanie Grant, and I'm a staff attorney at Equip for Equality. And what we are is a legal rights organization that we provide free legal services for people with disabilities throughout the state of Illinois. We have 3 legal teams. We have an abuse investigation unit, we have a civil rights team, and we have a special education unit. I'm from the special education unit, and as part of that, I provide advice and help for families with children with disabilities.
I certainly want to talk more about that because that seems to be a big issue, especially not just with Latinos, but with, I think, families in general, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge issue in helping students be able to obtain evaluations in school, obtain appropriate services in school. And about 12 years ago, we started the Latinos with Disabilities Advocacy Project, which helps us go out into the community and work with other partner organizations who are here with me today to help address the specific needs of Latino families in language barriers, cultural barriers, in obtaining these services and being able to have successful conversations and services with the schools.
Great. We'll definitely get into all of that. Our next guest is Jose Ovalle. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. I'm part of the Autism Program of Illinois. I'm the parent liaison for the Northern Region. The Autism Program of Illinois is a network of agencies that provide services, information, training, referrals, and resources for families who have children on the spectrum of autism. We also provide diagnostic services through 4 universities that we have affiliated with us.
Okay, for university students or?
Actually, this is these are diagnostic services for families who have children on the spectrum. And it's for the screening, first the screening process, and then it goes to the diagnostics, but it is provided through 4 universities within the state.
Okay, great. And our last guest today here at the far end, Irma Hernandez, welcome.
Thank you. I am the program coordinator for the Hispanic Diagnostic and Family Support Clinic Center at the Developmental Disabilities Family Clinics at the University of Illinois. We've had our Hispanic diagnostic program as well as other clinics for the past 20 years, serving individuals with developmental disabilities, and as well as individuals who have mental health challenges, which is hard to find out in the community. So we serve all across the spectrum and all ages.
All ages.
For diagnostic and other clinical services.
Okay, wow. So we have a group here of professionals that are working out there with people with disabilities and obviously their families. Let's go back to you, Melanie, and what you started telling us about. What is it that you do through Equip for Equality, especially in the arena of education?
Right, so what we do is like I said before, we provide free legal services, and we have a helpline. So families can call our helpline and speak with an attorney for free and talk with us about what their problem is, and we can provide them with advice over the phone, or we could help them, we provide them with materials. Often I'll advise a parent to write a letter to the school, and I can revise the letter, or I can write a letter for a parent. We also provide representation in some cases, if at an IEP, at a meeting to discuss the educational program of the student, to be able to really provide for their needs is what they in speaking with the school and the school team. Generally, for students with disabilities, each student has what we call an individualized education program. It's a legal document that provides them with services that they get through the school. So if you have a student, for example, that has autism or is on the autism spectrum, they will be required, the school district will be required to provide them with certain types of services based upon evaluations, based upon experts in the field of autism, to be able to understand what that student's needs are. And so a parent will come to me if they think that maybe their student or their child isn't receiving appropriate services, and we can talk about what those services are and what they are asking for the school and how we can kind of help that conversation go forward.
Okay, and specifically with Latinos, what are some of the issues that you mentioned some of them, but you can mention some of them and give me like some examples you've maybe known about of Latinos having to face some difficulties, and obviously both of you can also add to that if you so choose. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues is the language barrier, in that often these documents are presented in English. They don't understand what is being said. They're at a meeting where everyone is speaking in English. They have an interpreter, but it's very hard to be present in a meeting when there's an interpreter going on. There might be a side conversation, so they're not understanding what's happening. And so I think not being able to understand the proceeding itself is difficult, and I think not being able to have the information in their native language is also a huge barrier.
And legally, this information should be available in their native language.
So legally, they're required to provide an interpreter at the meeting, and parents are required to be meaningfully informed of what's happening, and or they're supposed to meaningfully participate in the proceeding. And so, as an attorney, what I do is I'm there as a bilingual attorney. I'm able to understand what's happening in English, understand what's happening in Spanish, and have the parent ask questions. Another big issue, I think, though, is knowing what they can ask for, knowing what their rights are. I think a lot of times parents trust the school that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're unaware of services that they're entitled to. There are services that should be provided that are listed in some of these documents that aren't happening. And so being able to request documentation or talk with the school about, okay, I understand that I'm supposed to be getting 60 minutes of speech therapy for my child every week. What are those progress notes looking like? Let's talk about the speech therapy specifically.
Okay. Well, and you in working with TAP and people with autism, how does that work, I guess, involve the UIC family clinics and this collaboration with Equip for Equality?
Well, what happens is that Hope is housed by, actually it's part of a larger network known as the Hope Institute of Illinois.
Okay.
And the Hope Institute of Illinois provides housing and education for all kinds of disabilities, not only autism. So we are we're under that umbrella. But we provide information, resources, and everything else. Part of the resources that we provide is legal advice through agencies such as Equip for Equality and some others that exist in Chicago. And some of the actual services and therapies are provided through the University of Illinois, which in Chicago, which is one of our partners. Also, the important thing is that there's a lot of information on the website, and everything in the website is beginning to get completely translated into Spanish. A lot of the tip sheets for parents, we work mainly with parents. In my case, I work mainly with parents, and I give them information and resources regarding the services that they require, whether they're legal, whether they're for IEPs, which is a legal document that should be completely respected by schools and the parents. And all these services are provided through the agencies that we have. Some of them are just resource rooms. Some of them are diagnostic and screening, such as UIC. Some of them are, and they also provide other services, such as the social skills groups for children with autism, so that they learn how to communicate with others, which is one of the aspects of autism that is like the most, one of the symptoms of autism that is the most important of all.
Right, and I do want to go back, I mean, not even back, I want to actually talk about briefly what autism is, because I know that's a word, or what do you call it, a condition?
It is a condition.
A condition that is being spoken about more widely now. I think there's growing awareness of autism and what it is, but I think, myself included, a lot of us don't necessarily understand what you mean by spectrum and what autism is itself. Can you just give us
Autism is a spectrum in the sense that it goes from people who are severely affected, that don't develop language, they don't develop social skills, have serious behavior and sensory issues, to a moderate sense where they could use some language, they could communicate relatively effectively, but they still have a lot of behavior problems. Or one of those three aspects, communication, behavior, and language, are not there completely. And then there's a high functioning who you could hardly tell that they have autism. They function properly within some circles, but it could either be a speech impediment, it could be inability to communicate effectively to other people. So it's a spectrum in the sense that people fall under that umbrella, from high functioning to severely affected. Also, we don't know what causes it yet.
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
We don't know what, there's no cure for it yet. There's only therapies and other evidence-based services that can be used to retrain the brain to adjust a little more to the expected behavior that we feel it's the appropriate behavior. But socially, we don't even know exactly what we're expecting from them. There's also, we like to say that when an individual in the family has autism, the whole family has it because everybody has to deal with them. And it's just very, very, sometimes very toll-taking into the family. It's a very stressful situation for the entire family.
And therefore, you exist as part of a network of support for those.
It is the largest support network in the country, state support network in the country. We provide services from the Chicago area, which we have the most services because of the amount of people that exist here. And we go all the way to Cairo, which is the southernmost.
That's 6 hours away.
Exactly, city of the state. And we do that through very many, actually mostly not-for-profit agencies that provide resource rooms that have all this information that I was mentioning, training, investigation, information.
And this also ties into what Irma does through UIC Developmental Disabilities Family Clinics.
Yes.
And Grupo Salto.
Yes.
Tell me about how that work combines with this serving and supporting the Latino community.
Sure.
Or families who have an individual with a disability.
Sure. The family clinic, like I said before, does serve all disabilities. It's not just focused on autism, although we have a great number of programs that have started specific to autism. But back to what Melanie was saying about the barriers that the Latinos face, that's actually why we started to form the Hispanic Diagnostic Program 20-some years ago, because I went to the director and said, we need to have these families served. Nobody else is doing it. And we were receiving at the time a state grant to do specifically diagnostic and some family support services. So at that point is when the various clinics started to develop. So the Hispanic program has always been one of the busiest because there are no other places that families can turn to for diagnostic services. And yes, we do have some kids that are already identified, but we have a lot of children that have not. And it's unfortunate to see, some young adults, some high schoolers that are now getting the diagnosis of autism. So they spent their whole elementary school years and without getting any services. So, because we've had a number of funding sources more recently, other than the state grant, we've been able to expand the services that we provide. So we have social skills training, we have services for adults, anger management, dating skill, socialization groups for younger kids, therapy, because a lot of cases get referred here for therapy, for treatment, because the community mental health centers are not able to serve these individuals with disabilities, which is a shame.
Right.
We don't have a lot of diagnosticians that are experts in the field of developmental disabilities. And so part of what's happening, and maybe Jose can talk about that, is that the LEND program, also housed at the Department of Disability and Human Development, has a LEND program. And maybe you can talk about what LEND is.
LEND is a program that also teaches about all disabilities. It has an emphasis on autism, but it's open to describe or teach about all disabilities that exist. And it is a graduate program that UIC houses. And I was a graduate of this program when it was in Pampers, practically. I was from the second generation of LEND. And it's grown so incredibly well, and a lot of the people who come, most of the people who come out of this field come very well prepared to deal with disabilities.
Wow. Well, that's good to hear, but as you've all alluded to and touched on directly, is a lot of times Latinos, because of language issues or maybe even some cultural barriers, don't always know what services are out there, or experts themselves don't necessarily know how to talk or respond or appropriately respond to different situations. You mentioned some of the services that you have for individuals with disabilities, and specifically with autism. Can you give me an example of, without obviously naming anybody, of a family you've worked with or an individual you've worked with, and how it was that you maybe helped them find the right place to
Well, you know, as I said
be
earlier,
better.
there were some individuals that hadn't been identified, and I can think of a couple that come to mind.
How old were they, by the way?
They were about 17. They were about to
17.
graduate high school when they came to our clinic, and
That must have been incredibly frustrating upbringing for that family.
it was frustrating because the mom knew that there was something different about the daughters, but she just didn't know. No, the school never identified them or classified them in any way, nor provided them with any type of special education. They never even evaluated them, which is the first step. You need an assessment. If the teacher's thinking that the child's not working as the other peers are, then the first step should be to identify the child and refer them for an evaluation. And these kids just get lost. We get kids from all ages that haven't been identified. And it's sad to say in this day and age that, that more people are not getting the word out there as to where they can turn to. So I think that's one of the reasons why our clinic is very well known in the community, because we do try to do some outreach through some of the trainings that Jose does, but trainings about autism, training about disabilities in general, and going out and into the schools to provide information specifically about developmental disabilities and autism.
And these trainings, if, like, for example, I'm at a school or at a organization, an office or something like that, and I want to have you come in, how does that work out? I mean, I just give you a call and say, let's do this, or?
That's normally what happens. They call us and say, you know, we need you to come out and talk. Just recently we got a call from a community agency that wants us to go talk specific about autism to a group of parents. So we do. We need to be out there. As busy as we are clinically, we have to be out there because no one else is doing it.
Now, you mentioned 2 girls, right, that were diagnosed at a later age. I tend to have the stereotype that it's usually boys that are autistic, but that obviously not.
Well, yeah, you're right. Most commonly it's found in boys, but there are a great number of girls that are being identified now. But it does happen more frequently with boys.
Okay, and there's also you mentioned also support group, and one thing I saw curious as I was doing some research is there's a support group, I think, for fathers, right, or men of people with children with autism.
It actually started through the Grupo Salto, which is which is a support group for families of children with autism, children and adults with autism. And through that group was formed precisely because there were a lot of families identified, Spanish-speaking families that had children with autism. And so that group was formed.
What does Salto stand for?
Sociedad Autista Latina Trabajando con Optimismo.
Wow.
Latino Autism Society Working with Optimism.
Okay. And so it's a support group. What happens within the support group, or what activities, what do you do?
We have monthly meetings. It's normally the 3rd Saturday of every month, where we come and bring a theme. You know, a different topic is set every month. And so we bring in a speaker or speakers from the clinic to come on and talk about different areas of interest that parents might have, whether it's, you know, behavior management, whether it's toilet training, whether it's, you know, communication, whether it's
Legalities.
Yeah, so for example, I've come and presented to Grupo Salto to provide their families with kind of an overview of what parental rights are under the law for students with disabilities. And we go through, you know, how to request an evaluation, how to request a meeting, an individualized education program meeting to discuss the services that their students are receiving. Or if there is a problem, how to deal with those problems. And so we go out and we train families, train parents so that they can advocate for themselves, so they can go to the school and say, hey, something's wrong here, we need to have a meeting, we need to discuss it, I need to see progress reports. And so we go through these different trainings to different parent groups, community groups, groups to be able to present them with the information on, you know, all these types of issues on behavior, and if your child is being disciplined in school, the protections for students with disabilities, if they're exhibiting more behavior problems or transition issues, if they're becoming ready to graduate from high school, you know, making sure that they have a plan in place of what are they going to do after high school, how is the school helping them prepare for adulthood, for life after school. And so we, you know, all these issues are familial issues, they're legal issues, and we try to merge those two parts of the community together so that everyone can be well informed.
And what happens, unfortunately it does happen, and that's why your job exists, when there's a school that does not respond or is not responding as best as they can. How do you step in and maybe support that family or advocate for them? What is it that you come in and do?
Right, so I'll review the student records, generally speaking, and I'll look and see if there's discrepancies, or in an individualized education program, a student is supposed to have annual goals in all of their areas. So they'll have a reading goal, they'll have a math goal, they'll have a social skills goal, they'll have a speech goal, they'll have all these goals depending on what their needs are. And so I'll review those goals, I'll review the evaluations that have been completed, possibly through UIC, through the school district provides evaluations, different areas, to see what the experts recommend, the psychologist recommends, the social worker recommends, and seeing how that's being implemented. One great example is behavior plans. Oftentimes students that exhibit behavior, they're supposed to have a behavior intervention plan as part of this legal document, this IEP is what we call it. And we'll go through it and we'll say, well, let's kind of adjust this and be more specific, and let's track their behavior. And so I'll come into the school and help them kind of augment what goals are there and make them, and figure out who's accountable and make those changes.
Wow, that's great. And you mentioned something that I think you both touched on it, Irma and you, Melanie, is helping students get ready for college. Now that's a big shift, right? Because they're adults. So what happens then? Because you support children and adults, right? At Grupo Salto and through the family clinics.
Right. And through with collaboration of the TAP program, we've been able to, for I believe the last 4 years, run a transition program, which is for adults that are either in high school or finishing high school and thinking about going to college. It's been great. Jose's been part of that project as well. We end up talking about what to expect after high school, because they don't have the supports that they had during the high school years, or they don't have IEPs. Now it's basically on their own. Parents are really not expected to be involved in their college years. They're on their own.
Right.
So they need to know how to advocate. They need to know how to go to the special education office and let them know that they have a condition that may warrant them having extra time for exams or any accommodation that they may need in the classroom. Oftentimes they don't know that they can do that, or they're hesitant because they don't want other people to know that they have a disability. And so we through this transition program, try to prepare these young adults for that.
And we also involve the parents, because it is very hard to explain to a Latino parent that they don't have authority over their kids. If it's hard for for parents of neurotypical children, I can imagine if you tell the mother of a child who has autism, high functioning autism, and is ready to go to college, that she cannot be in the meetings, that she cannot advocate for her son, that it's not going to be allowed. So it's pretty hard.
They can't even look at grades,
Exactly.
right? Or demand that.
Right.
If they didn't, legally, right? They're bound by that legally as well.
Exactly.
And it's been good also to work with the parent group as well, because sometimes parents come in with expectations of, I want my child to go to college and have a college degree. And then the young adult is saying, I really don't want college. I want to find a full-time job, or
Exactly.
I just want to go to trade school and do something with mechanics. So it's trying to listen to both sides and try to help them come to some kind of plan for their future.
And a lot of this sounds like it does require planning and patience, but certainly something that you stick with, and you stick with each other. We're out of time, and you've given us a whole lot of information for us to process and for our audience to process. Thanks for coming out today.
Thanks
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
And to you, thank you for joining us. Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune in to Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.